Hi, friends. It's us again. Just
Yes.
kidding.
It's like, there's us.
Honey,
Four of
okay,
us.
okay. Hi, friends. It's us
Hi.
again,
Hi.
your pals from your favorite podcast. One of us knows what they're talking about, and the other one is you, where we dive into primarily legal topics in Texas around estates, probates, and all of those such things, as well as things that are completely irrelevant, but things that we know about and others don't, and we're frustrated. So we created a podcast. And I'm excited about today, as I'm excited about everything, but every day and every topic. But the attorneys at Burch Law have been in the midst of an all week CLE, that is continuing legal education, because after all, it is merely practicing law, right? So we're not, maybe one day we'll be good at it, but right now we're just practicing.
Well, that's
Anywho,
one could dream.
that's
yeah,
another
let's move
thing
on.
that's another thing to dig into as to why they call it that. It's also called practicing medicine for those of you who are seeing doctors and going under the knife. So anyway, and we're doing that. It's a requirement, but this one's been very interesting and eye-opening. And I feel all the more emboldened to share some things that a lot of people have misperceptions about. So I thought today a good topic to dive into. We have spent a lot of time, and don't worry, friends, dear listeners, we will continue to destruct, dismantle, and dishearten people who think that DIY, Chat GPT, AI, all of that is sufficient enough to get this very complicated planning done. You may not think your situation is complicated. The state of Texas has different ideas for you. And so let's go ahead and just pretend you've listened to us already and that you are already on board with the idea that doing anything but going to a law firm is the wrong way to get your will, trust, estate plan in place. And so let's just dispense with that. You're already on board. But then the question arises, okay, I know I need to get this done. I know that this DIY, legal, reduced legal services, all of that is no good. But then how do I find the right law firm? Because there's a lot out there. And in case you haven't been made aware, there are law firms and attorneys that don't know what the hell they're doing.
What?
They truly are just practicing. They're air quote practicing what they're doing. Now, let me go ahead and start by saying what is not a criteria, and I take this very personally, is I would not necessarily look at the length of experience that an attorney or a law firm has. What? Yeah. And I started my law practice at like 26 years old. I pretty fresh out of law school, had a little bit of bouncing around before I decided to start my own law practice. And I feel pretty darn confident in all of the training and mentoring I got and the work that I did to make sure that every client received the highest degree of service and guidance and all of that. And I still encounter attorneys that have practiced longer than I've been alive that don't know the first thing about what they are doing. They don't know the first thing about the estates code or the best way to draft something or how to navigate the probate court system. And so I do think it's important. There's other benchmarks and other ways to vet a firm, but I wouldn't use that, frankly. Now, it was interesting because I'll tell you a little anecdote. When I first started my practice, like I said, I was like 26 or something. And I was really concerned that I would not be taken seriously and that I might have difficulty getting people to want to hire such a young person. What I found early on is people were like, no, no, no. We purposely wanted to go to you because you are young and you have a higher chance of still being alive when I croak to guide my family. And I thought, aha, I need to leverage that, right? So now here I am,
Were those
almost 20.
exact words used Just a quick aside.
I mean, to some degree, lots of people, that's another thing for us to dive into at some point, is all the different euphemisms for people passing away. Right? So I see mental notes being made right now. But to some degree, yes, because it was a common thing that was said to me. So I was like, aha, this is my leverage to try and market to people and sell them on my firm because I didn't have the years of experience. So now I'm, 19, 20 years into this thing, and I feel like I'm at this perfect tipping point of still being young by comparison to a lot of attorneys. And if my fellow Burch Law members don't believe me, then I will take you to the next CLE so you can see what the average estate planning attorney looks like. But still young enough, but then have this bulk of experience. So it's like, this is the best time to use Burch Law, frankly, because at some point, well, I guess I've hired younger people, so I can still have the best of both worlds. But anyway, so now we have all the experience and the youth and longevity under our belts. How's that? Which actually is somewhat part of this. So I thought today what we would do, and this is actually on our website, if you go to burch-law.com, we have something called the Burch Law Promise Checklist. And what we find sometimes is when people don't know what to look for in a law firm, what do they typically decide is their primary criteria?
Cost.
Cost. And is cost a good way to determine the right firm to draft your will, estate plan, or trust?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
No. It's not. It's really a function of more value because hopefully most consumers out there feel the same way that I do, is that I don't really judge something based off what it's going to cost. I base it off of the value it's going to provide. So if I'm buying car seats, which recently over the last 5 years, I've had to buy 5 million of them, then I want ones, not that are the cheapest, so that I can feel like, check box, I've got a car seat in there. I want one that has the highest rating, highest value, so that if it has to be used, it will provide the most protection and safety for my child. Gosh, isn't that a parallel? Isn't that a parallel to your estate plan? That do you want one that's cheap or do you want one that works? And that's not the best way to go about that.
In addition, hopefully you never have to use the car seat. You will have to use your estate plan. It's coming for you.
Every time. Every time. And, the reality is, we hope it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, but you don't know. It could be tomorrow.
Hopefully for me, not
And
60. That's too long.
60?
Another conversation to have.
Well, like additional 60 to my existing
Oh,
age.
I see.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
too long.
Yeah.
Yes. So however long you want to live, chances are you're not going to pick it. So best to be prepared, best to have the reality also that you may need to adjust or tweak it. But anything of quality is going to at least cover you better than nothing and better than the inadequate ways of doing it. So the question comes, what is the best way to look at? What are the best things to look at? What is the checklist that we recommend? And there's probably a much longer list that we could go into, but again, this is on our website, but I do think this is really important. So this is based off our experience and what we've seen. And we're going to start with some of the bigger ones, and I don't, whatever the team wants to interject. I know Sam and Sara are chomping at the bit for their own checklists that they have. But that doesn't mean you're off the hook participating in the actual substantive part of our show. So here's the first thing. First thing is when you are looking at a firm or a lawyer to do your will, trust, or estate plan, you should make sure that doing that work is at least 50% of their practice. Now, for us, it's over 80%. And guess what the other part is? Probate. More about that in a second. So basically, it's all we do. And the reason that this one has become so apparent to me is because, you graduate from law school, you take the bar exam, you get licensed, you technically can do any kind of law there is. However, law school and the bar exam do not teach you how to be a lawyer. What? They do teach you some very valuable things, but being a lawyer is not one of them. How to completely write the most archaic run-on sentences, how to outwit, outsmart, and outmaneuver your friends. I think that's actually isn't that like the slogan for Survivor?
Survivor,
Like
yes.
that. Yeah. It'll get you better at winning arguments, perhaps, critical thinking, not being able to define any single word, everything having a gray area, everything having a nuance, and nothing being black and white, and the answer to everything being it depends. That's what you get from law school, okay? But you don't know the substantive practice of law. It's all theoretical. And so, unless you're doing this on a daily basis, it's really hard to know the best ways of how to draft something, what it means when you put per stirpes versus per capita, identifying all the kids, identifying kids you don't want, identifying like all the different components that go into making sure that it's there, providing for a contingent trust. In the event that a beneficiary is incapacitated, or if you've decided want everything to go to this person, if they don't survive, meaning this other person, and that other person is a minor child. There's just all these intricacies that are important to put in there. And it is somewhat a source of frustration. And in fact, yesterday in the CLE, there was a gentleman who was a lawyer presenting on special needs trusts. And it was very obvious that he was very passionate about other attorneys who don't know and don't commonly practice Medicare, Medicaid, special needs planning to be dabbling in drafting these documents. And that's one reason why we refer that out when people come to us. And we feel very strongly about that. So just because you've got this jack of all trades, master of none, sure, I have a law degree, they handled your divorce, they took care of your DUI, they looked at your unemployment contract, and they handled all these other things for you. Well, certainly I went to law school. I can figure out how to draft a will and all of that. No, it is a very, very big mistake. There is a lot. And unlike other legal documents and contracts that you're drafting, the main time that you find out that something was missed or done wrong is when, Sam, let's get you involved. When it comes to a will or trust. Huh?
Sorry. Signing?
No.
Sorry.
Think a little beyond that.
When do you find out?
Sorry.
Put it to you this way.
Say bro.
Something was drafted incorrectly, or something was left out, or something was confusing. When do you find that out?
Oh, usually after the signing, or like when you die. Or
when you die.
Yeah.
And would you agree with me, Sam, that would be too late?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you mess up something in a divorce decree, still really bad, but I'm here to tell you, you might find that out in time to correct it, or at least be aware of handling the issue on your own. But no, this is something that you don't even know. And so then you're just leaving a mess for your family, which the number one reason people tell us they want to get this planning done is to not leave a mess, to make things easier. And if that is your primary objective, then making sure that you choose to do this in a way that is going to be the most effective, have the highest value, and achieve that, it's really not a matter of what it costs. It's a matter of what it's going to save you in time, money, and heartache for your family, right? So definitely make sure that you're looking at a firm that is at least the majority of their practice. Okay, there's a lot of firms like ours where it's like it is the practice, but we do see some that do some family law, some estate planning, some criminal law. Which another question for another day is why there are so many firms that do family law and criminal law like together. Anyway, Another question. The second big thing, very related to that, is to also make sure that that firm not only has the majority of their practice is in the estate planning world, but they also do probate, because probate's the piece when you do pass away, and how do you sort everything out? How do wills and trusts get interpreted? How do you make sure that your home is transferred correctly, that bank accounts are accessed, life insurance gets paid, trust gets set up for young kids, guardianship for kids is set up, all expenses are being handled and paid, and all of those things are done. If you don't see how it gets interpreted, and if you don't see how this stuff gets used, then you really have no business drafting in the first place. And I can tell you, kind of going back to the first part of this conversation, that if you don't know how it gets interpreted, you're not going to know how to draft it. And I will tell you, as much as I was confident in my early years, I am much better at drafting, and our team now is much better at drafting. And it constantly changes as we learn different ways and different trends that judges, banks, and title companies interpret things. A couple examples, and I don't know if you all want to offer some examples, but one thing that has really changed because we've experienced what happens when somebody passes is how we identify your name in the documents.
Yep.
It used to be that I could just sign my will, Lorie Burch, and then they could make the leap, the mental leap.
Or bound, like massive bound.
The what?
Massive, leaps and bounds. Wow. Okay. We're
Yes.
here. It's
Yes.
just so difficult to go from Lorie Burch
To go from Lorie Burch to, wait for it, Lorie Louise Burch. When I first started this practice, that was not a hard thing. You did not have to put both names in there. So if I had a home that I bought, Lorie Louise Burch, but my will said Lorie Burch, really wouldn't even look twice at that. Well, I will have you know that now we are having courts, title companies, and the like being completely baffled and crippled by that. So one thing that we do is we make sure that we identify different names. If you've gone by different nicknames, if perhaps we'll look to see in the appraisal district, if your property's listed in a different name, we'll ask you, how are things on your bank accounts? And if we have to do the longest list of AKAs and documents, we will. Or if we have to draft the will with a different name with AKAs and the other documents, we'll do that. So that is one example of something that's really changed. I'll tell you another change. I don't know if Cyntia or anybody else has an idea, but another one that I think is pretty significant is our firm in particular has a lot of families with young kids. And so they may be getting this done, but they're not done yet having kids. So we would say, I have these 2 kids, but this will includes any future born children. And for a while, we would say that's good enough. That covers you. And it does. That we want it to be that no matter what. But how it used to be is when people say, oh, we've had a 3rd kid, should we update them? It used to be our general advice would be like, no, not necessarily. Why don't you wait till they're bigger and maybe we're making more significant changes, but just adding the kid's name there, not really necessary. Well, guess what? That's been trending to be a little different because now we're having courts that don't like that they'll still honor it, but they want extra steps, which just means delays and expense, such as having an attorney ad litem appointed on behalf of the heirs to really confirm who else was born, what their names were, and all of that, which again, you still get where you want to go, but it's going to take longer and more expense. Any other examples, team, that you can think of?
Yeah. So one of the things, this isn't necessarily as much a learning through doing, but just making sure we're up to date on laws that are passed and things like that. In the past, before, I believe last year, if you had a felony, you could not, or were convicted of a felony, you could not serve as executor. They've recently changed the law that if you are named in the will as executor by your loved one, you could serve if you have a felony. I'm still a little like perplexed by that one, but you know what? It is what it is. But I feel like that's something that also you really need to make sure you go to somebody who's not only looking at what the trends are doing, but also ensuring that they stay up on their education. Just that's a really big one.
Yeah, I really have had more issues with the felony issue than I would have thought when I first
Yeah.
started the practice. So
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's one that we have seen come up like a good bit. It's like, nope, they have felony, they can't serve. But now it's a little different. Or in the past, whenever somebody died without a will and their only next of kin was convicted of a felony, like that's then you have to find somebody else to be the
yes.
administrator. So, you know.
So the third criteria that we recommend is to make sure that they will help guide you on how bank accounts and beneficiaries for life insurance, retirement, and investments are set up so that it doesn't conflict with your plan. Why? Why? Because however you have your account set up, if you have joint accounts, right of survivorship, POD, pay on death, TOD, transfer on death, life insurance beneficiaries, retirement beneficiaries, investment account beneficiaries, all of that overrides anything a will or trust says.
But Lori, I
So,
want everything to go to my kid and they're five. Why
right.
why do I need to do anything?
So if you go to a firm and you say, I have a 5-year-old, and certainly ones that even don't really know what they're doing are going to be able to pull off the idea of, well, they're underage, so maybe assets should go into a trust for them, and you can pick who you want to oversee that money for them until they're an older age. You get to pick that older age. Okay, you pick 25, great. You paid a few $100 because that's all you were looking for, and you walk out the door, and they didn't tell you anything about how the last thing you want to do is go to your life insurance and put the 5-year-old's name or retirement or investment account. Because then with the life insurance, for example, that company is going to say, it doesn't matter that there's a will with a trust and all of that in there. You told me this name. This is a minor child. So a couple things have to happen. Either a court has to get involved, appoint who will oversee it, money goes to the court registry and it gets given to them at 18, or the most philanthropic life insurance companies that I know will say, hey, no problem. We'll just keep this money until they are 18, and then we'll give it to them. And you can imagine why there's a lot of downsides to that. And hopefully it did not escape you that perhaps an 18-year-old is not the best person to be making decisions on how to use any sum of money, particularly those type of things. So the point being that however accounts and beneficiaries are set up, it's very important that they're set up to not conflict with your plan, but coordinate with your plan. And that's very individualized. That is not a one size fits all. If you've done a living trust, it could be that you want your beneficiaries to all be that living trust, or maybe not. You might need the testamentary trust, as it were. I guess we'll have to do a day on talking about what different types of trusts. But it could be that you need to name that, or it could be that you need to do something else. I mean, there's just lots of different ways to do it. The point and the takeaway is the value you're getting with a qualified law firm is they're going to be looking at the big picture, and they're going to be able to guide you on how to have those things set up so that the ultimate plan, because it's a plan, right? It's not documents. We're not document generators. We're planners. And so all of that goes hand in hand. So really those top three are like the biggest ones right out the gate. But I'm going to tell you what, the next one is so significant. And besides the people that work at Burch Law, you're going to be like, what? That is ridiculous. But this is one that Sam in particular is going to feel a great deal of ownership of. And that is, believe it or not, you should ask, will they help you get your documents signed and executed properly? And this is one of the biggest problems, not just with some of the law firms, the cut rate, cheap firms out there, but with the DIY forms and all of that. And my favorite thing, Sara knows this, is to go to the testimonials page, the reviews page of these online sites, and everybody talks about how easy it was. Well, you know what? Mad Libs is pretty easy too. You may not know parts of speech though. That's the challenge for some people.
Yeah, I was like,
But filling in the blank, and that's all you're doing. And then you hit a little button and it generates, but you get to talk to an attorney if you want to. Let me tell you about the types of attorneys that work for these companies. They don't fit the other criteria we just talked about. They don't practice probate. They don't, the majority of their practice is not doing that. I know this firsthand. I know this because one of the attorneys that worked at our firm used to work for one of the biggest online will sites. And she told us that she would answer these questions all day long, and she really didn't have an understanding of it until she came to our firm.
That's
did
comforting.
you not know
Neat,
this, Sara?
Is this the first time you heard it, Sara?
Yeah.
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 So true story there. So no. But anyway, so yeah, it's easy to fill out forms and blanks and print them and all of that. But most of the time they aren't even signed properly. I say this is near and dear to Sam's heart because Sam is one of the key people who ensures that all of our documents get signed. And we provide that service in our office. It requires witnesses and notaries, and we make that a seamless process. Clients don't have to arrange any of that. The best law firms, they do it the same way. But Sam, what if we have someone, because, you know, we're a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but it's not like people haven't heard of Burch Law into the nether regions of the state, let's say down in Houston or San Antonio, right? So we have people who are like, no, I want the Burch Law to do this. Give me the Burch Law.
The Burch.
And if they decide that, you know, Dallas is great and all, but we really don't feel like road tripping, what do we do, Sam, for those clients?
Yeah, so we do something called an off-site signing. So we will print the documents, get them ready, upload it to the portal for them to be able to download, or if they want us to send them, we'll send them. And included are some signing instructions for their notary, for them to look over and for their notary to look over. So that way all the questions are being asked, and it also has for each document whether they need to assign, initial, if there's extra initialing, stuff like that. And then we ask them to scan them back to us so we can just double check that everything.
Wait a minute, Sam. Wait. You buried the lead. Okay. What's the last part?
Oh, that we ask them to scan them back to us so we can double check that everything looks good. Because 90% of the time, if they don't,
and if, well, we'll get to that in a second. And if they don't, do we just say, nah, whatever?
No, I annoy them until they say fine.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, Sam, you just alluded to this, but when they do send them and we inspect them,
yes.
What do you see? What's your experience with that?
So there's like, I would say 10 to 20% where they do it perfectly. I would say like 50% is usually higher.
No, it's really not.
50% is usually just like a stray initial wasn't signed, like some were missed here and there. But there's some that are just not good at all. Dates weren't put in, wasn't signed. There was a couple where like the will was signed on one day and this trust was signed like a week later. And then all of their like power of attorneys was like a week after that. It was, and then they had different witnesses for the will on different pages. And it was a whole mess, to put it
My
nicely.
favorite thing is when Sam gets like a packet of them that are like mailed to us or they get uploaded to the portal. And she's just like, I need to look at this. I'm like, okay, sure. What is it? And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
I know the instructions that we send because I revamped them during 2020 because we're having a lot of offsite signings.
Right. They're so clear.
And oh my gosh.
They're not hard to follow. Don't get it.
Yeah. No, this is really important. So, you know, and I want to tell you, like, I have the utmost confidence that our clients are average to super intelligent people. Okay. And it's something we see time and time again that, and it's why we're so adamant about making sure that if they're going to do the offsite thing, that they send them to us for them to inspect it, for us to inspect them so that it's not too late. We can still get this corrected. But, and that's with us overseeing the process. That's with us giving really detailed instructions. So imagine, extrapolate that out, if you will, to the legal services companies, even some of the HR benefit companies, like all the, and that's great, like HR benefits, they provide these legal services. Well, and it's done by real law firms. That's how they're doing it, folks. First of all, it's very cookie cutter. It's very similar to DIY generic planning. But at the same time, they just send you a packet of materials and tell you how to sign it. But then there's no follow up, there's no accountability, there's nothing to make sure that it's signed correctly. And if it's not signed correctly within the rules of the law, then it's not valid. There's no close. The other part of it, and this is something that I talked to the team about today, because in the CLE we were talking about the diminished capacity, because a lot of people, they don't listen to me, shame on them, and they don't get a plan done ahead of time. So they really are on their last legs. When we say last will and testament, it is literal, folks. So we're sometimes kind of walking a fine line between, does someone really have the wherewithal to know what they're doing? And it really defines by law, by the estates code, what qualifies as someone being of sound mind. So even if you're sent this packet of materials from other firms or the DIY stuff that says how to do it, typically you're going into like a UPS store, getting a notary, getting whatever witnesses you can, or your insurance person is a notary, like all of that. They don't know how these documents need to be handled, and there's very important questions that need to be answered when you sign a testamentary document, meaning a will, a trust, deeds, all of that. And it's defined to us, it's given to us. And so probably all of our clients have no idea why we ask this list of questions before they sign it. But it's really making sure that they meet that sound mind test, so that whether it's 5 years later or 50 years later, and they die, and a family member wants to challenge whether they had any capacity at the time that they died, we're able to say, yes, they met the standard. Well, how can you remember something 20 years ago? Because every single time we do a signing, we ask these questions to qualify them. So, it is so critical. And it seems like that might be a silly question for you to ask. And by the way, while we're very specific to Texas law, all this criteria we're going with is actually one of those things I would say is universal for everybody. This is what everybody should be looking at, no matter what state you're in, to decide what kind of firm you want to go with. And you have every right to ask them these questions. How do you help, how much of your practice do you do with estate planning? Do you also handle probate? Do you see how that plays out? What kind of guidance do you give on setting up bank accounts, beneficiaries, and all of that? What do you do as far as helping us get this signed? Like, those are the core ones that I would say. But wait, there's more. Sorry, Sara and Sam, I have more to share. So here are some other ones that I think that are good to ask. And some of them, again, much like the signing, you might hear this and think, gosh, that seems kind of silly, or that seems kind of presumed. But trust me, we don't see it all done the same way. So another issue that we have a lot is people lose originals or don't have copies or this or that. So I think another thing that's really good to ask, or they're coming to us maybe from a different state or something, and we need to review what their plan was, and they don't have any copies of it, or they can't send it to us electronically, or they just have these big binders that if you set it down on a table, it'll break the table, is will they provide you with your originals? Do they give you guidance on how to maintain your originals? And do they provide you with electronic copies? Now, fortunately, this is becoming more common practice, but not common enough that you should ask who maintains the originals, and will you provide me any sort of electronic copies? Now, that's not to say you can't take them and then scan them yourself, but the idea of clients scanning or doing anything like that just kind of concerns me. Let us do that for you. You have the electronic files. Back in the early days, I would burn them onto a CD, and someone in our office, was it you, Sarah? No, it would be Sarah. Somebody asked, I feel, what does burning a CD mean? We need to ask
Shruti.
Marcel.
No.
Was
it?
I know it was one. It wasn't, but I think Marcel. That conversation came up before he started working with our firm, so we definitely need to ask Marcel. But it might be Sruti.
Yeah.
Did not know what burning a CD was. Anyway, so have her pop on. No. Yes. So that is really important. Now let's talk about storage of originals. Maybe back in the olden days when it was like one law firm in your little county, having them keep your originals or even filing your original with the court was more common practice. I do not favor that practice whatsoever. I cannot tell you how many times we've struggled with people who cannot locate their originals, and they swear it's at this law firm, but that law firm has since gone away. More about that later. But that law firm doesn't exist anymore. We can't get in touch with them. Do they have the originals, this or that or the other? My philosophy, therefore the philosophy of Burch Law, is that it's much better, although risky, it has its own set of risks. But when you do a cost-benefit analysis, it leans towards the client themselves maintaining their originals. Now, we don't take that lightly. We give them instructions and guidance on where we think they should keep them and all of that. But you being able to maintain your originals, I think, is much better for a client than to try and keep them in some mysterious court. Who knows if you'll even live in that county when you pass away, or to keep them with a law firm, which, by the way, one of the biggest reasons law firms like to keep the originals is when you die, it kind of obligates the family to come to that firm, even if they don't want to use that firm, to handle the probate. So I don't think that's always the best. So let's go through a few other ones here as we wrap up. Do they have a succession plan? Now, I could be a little sensitive to this because for a long time, and I don't think this is like the only criteria, but it's something to factor in. If you actually find 2 unicorn law firms that have actually hit all of the categories that we've hit so far, great. But if you're looking for a little bit more to distinguish them, I definitely think looking at whether if they're making you contemplate your death or disability, shouldn't the lawyer have to contemplate their own? So, for example, me, if I dropped dead or had some medical emergency, no client of our firm would skip a beat. I'm sure they would all be inconsolable. But there's other firms, there's others, other attorneys, other staff, and we have relationships with other firms. So it would keep going. So I think it's good to kind of ask. It kind of gets back to what I started with, where people are like, we want to go to you because you're younger, so there's more likelihood that you'll still be around. Well, you know what? I'm getting older and maybe I won't, but the firm will. And the firm philosophy and culture and values will still be there that you entrusted. So I think that's good to look at. When you go to our website, like I said, there's this Burch Law Promise checklist. There's a couple of other things that are there that I think that are going to look at, good to look at. They might be things that we address, but I really wanted to make sure that we took this time to hit some of the most critical things to look at when deciding what kind of law firm. So that's a good start to a checklist. Is there anything relevant that you all want to add? Or is it time for the irrelevant section of our podcast?
don't have
Hold on. I'm
anything.
looking through the list. Sorry.
Good on you, Sarah, to actually be
I
looking at the
mean,
list.
I've had
I
it up
have
the
it
whole
open.
time.
Yeah.
It's just you just kept going. There was never really any good time to pause. Like you just look at the camera, but it's not really like a let me stop talking so it's not overlapping. But one of the biggest things is if you have a property, you have a specific way you want it to be distributed, and you, depending on how you're advised, will they help ensure that happens through deeds, through any kind of recording things officially with the county, things like that. Not everybody does that, and also not everybody ensures that it's done correctly. Like we've had issues in the past where something completely normal that we've done for years, where we would deed people's homes into their trusts, and then all of a sudden they're getting their homestead exemptions removed. And it's, well, excuse you, county, insert county name here. We actually have provisions in all of our documents to ensure that you retain that homestead exemption, even if it's the name of your trust. And that was a really big thing. That was a really big issue that we had. There was one that was particularly bad that we had some clients that lived hours away, and they came to us because they really wanted us to do their documents, their estate planning. And I had to really call the county in which they lived and talk to them about, no, they still retain everything. They still retain all of the exemptions that they have, because they had more than just homestead exemptions on their home. They had a couple other circumstances that were very special to them. So it's one of those things that you want to make sure that you have somebody that will help you make sure things are correct once everything is settled.
So I do want to take exception with something that you said, Cynthia, and that is that you insinuated that you didn't think that you could like interrupt me. And I remember a time recently in a meeting, and
Huh?
you did interrupt me.
Which meeting? I mean, I do it quite often, but
It's
this
when
is
you
that was
passed out.
internal.
It's when you passed out.
That
And
wasn't
I thought you were just like leaning down to get something, and then you kind of leaned back up. And I was in the middle of, I'm sure, imparting valuable, necessary legal knowledge upon our youngest attorney. And you said,
I mean,
"Hey,
that's
Lorie,"
questionable.
and I'm like, "What are you?" I'm thinking, "What are you doing interrupting me right now?" I'm
I
like
said,
right in the
"Hey,
middle
I'm
of it.
so sorry to do this right now, but I just passed out. I need to go." I feel like
Yes.
this is different because this is going to be broadcasted for, as you call them, our mini fans. I like to call them as people who care about their future. But there's a difference.
Intriguing.
You know,
Okay. Well, I
this is
just wanted
going
to go
out
on
to people.
record.
Well,
I just
you
want to go
want
on
to go on record
record.
for a
You're
lot of
comfortable
things.
interrupting.
It was because of my health. So sorry.
Excuse me. All right. Very good. So that's part, but not all of our checklist. And so I was thinking, I make it sound like Sara and Sam come out of nowhere with this stuff, and they kind of do, but I also sort of egg them on because I asked them, are there any other checklists that you all can think of that are important so that you can find the right whatever for you? So I'm sure Cynthia and I will interject, but why don't you tell me what you wanted to go with today as far as your checklists for finding the right fill in the blank?
I'm a little concerned for some of these, but go on.
Okay. Yeah, so we're starting off strong with how do you find the right job
Oh, good.
in this day and age. And I think Sam and I have a good list because we have found a good
do.
job.
Yeah.
So starting off, you
Are they
need to look for good
pandering?
vibes.
Always. Yeah, good
Wait,
vibes. They're important.
Start over because Cynthia talked over you. This is important.
I am pandering, and yes, we're starting off with you need to look for good vibes.
Very important.
Good
The
vibes.
second is free snacks. That's just, I feel like a very good bonus.
Especially
It is.
when you slip them by me on the order.
Is it really slipping by if you
I
just
give
don't
them
look?
to your wife. I don't know what to tell you.
When I saw the Topo Chico, I said, Kimberly Kinter, you need to run this stuff by me from here on out.
That was like
Anyway.
2 years ago.
I was going to say, when did we have
remember it.
Topo?
Yeah, there's also like the Starbucks drinks.
Yeah, and her
Listen,
argument
it was a
was,
hard
but they're for
time.
Cyntia. And I'm like, then
Yeah,
Cyntia can bring her own. It's a
but
thing.
they're for Cyntia. I
Yes.
care, okay? I should get some Starbucks drinks.
Next.
Fine.
Oh, good. I get this one.
Oh, yeah.
You
Um,
do?
it needs to have gay people. It just makes it livelier
Oh,
and more fun. Let's be real.
Very true.
more sparkles.
More
Yeah.
sparkles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another one is to make sure you have Lorie Burch at your
Oh.
job.
That wasn't
Yeah.
covered by the previous one.
No, it's
I guess
separate.
it is. Yeah, I guess it's more like a subcategory.
No,
of
but
gay
you've got
people.
to have, and if you are to have gay people,
You have
make
to have
sure
the
one of them
Lorie-
is Lorie Burch.
Yeah,
Fair
It's a
100%.
Venn diagram.
Yes.
You
And then lastly, you need to make sure they have pool parties. Because that was a lot of fun.
it was.
Okay.
It was.
All right. I think we've got time for another checklist. I mean, technically, we can have all the time we want, but
Yeah.
do you want to do another checklist?
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
for it. Sam, you pick.
Oh, you want me? Well, you know which one I'm going to
Do
pick.
the summer one.
Oh, okay. That's not the one I was going to pick, but okay.
I know.
So our other checklist is the summer checklist or the summer vacation checklist, whatever you want to call it. And the first thing, and I would say one of the most important, is to make sure you have your estate planning in place, especially if you're going anywhere that's
Excellent.
like out of country or something.
Great.
Not sponsored. Okay.
Not
And then
By
second,
who?
Out of the country. I don't know. By us, but it is.
Listen, she keeps shooting down my Italy idea.
Because I don't want to go to Italy.
Okay, fine. What if I start saying like, the Swiss Alps?
Ooh.
No.
You're
I
more of a
told
Bora
you.
Bora Fiji kind
Yes,
of girl. I
that
know,
is
but
what I
still.
told you.
I
Yes.
know.
Next.
the second thing you need to look for in the summer is if it's hot, go to somewhere where it is not hot.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hey, Sam?
That was a great
Yeah.
way of putting it. If you're traveling, especially obviously out of country, because they won't let you out of the country without it, your passport. It's just good to have on you if you're going somewhere.
Make sure
Why
it's
is
not
that?
Me
expired.
and Cyntia, your green card also.
Yeah. Real important.
Yeah. Or a form of ID if you're just stateside, I guess, but you never know.
Number 4, alcohol.
Woo!
Sarah, are you just doing 4 and 5?
What? Why do you say that? You don't even drink. But you want other people to have it.
Right. I want
We
other
drank
people to
last
have fun.
weekend.
That is
We
true.
had a
I
good
did.
time. Yeah.
At the pool party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
I had a lot of
That was
brands
2 weeks
drinks. It
ago,
was so
wasn't
good.
She, I don't know.
They were really good.
She was inebriated.
Okay. Oh,
I
wasn't
took
aware.
drinks from like 4 people.
Yeah, she took my drink. I
Wow.
think she took Gabby's at one point.
Yeah.
Somebody
Lauren.
I
else's.
took Kimberly's.
Kimberly's.
Yeah. No, like I think she's the one that drank most of Grant's mix.
It was really
Yeah.
yummy. It was like a habanero raspberry thing for you listeners out there. Okay, so
Okay,
Sarah, are you
next.
going to do the last one?
Yeah, this is all you, man. This isn't mine.
Oh, okay. Well, the 5th thing you should look for during the summer is you need to win a timeshare drawing for a free stay at a cool place.
Like Sarah did.
Thank you, Burch Law.
That could also be part of the first checklist, right?
Yeah, true.
Right.
Right. All right. And to bring us home, your final checklist.
We're doing this one? Okay. So the last one is going to a Taylor Swift concert. Once
Oh,
again,
yeah.
thank you, Burch Law.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. And the first on the list is to do friendship bracelets. We did it for everybody that was in our suite, including the ones who had won the drawing. We were very hot outside waiting for the doors to open, frantically trying to do a whole
I
bunch.
think you were the one
Good
that was
times.
the most hot because you were
Yeah,
in the
because I was in the
sun.
front.
But yeah, like the night before, Sam and I at her apartment got
Mhm.
a lot done. And
Yeah.
then the next day, because we got there super early, we just opened up the back of my car and just started another factory of
Yeah. It was fun.
bracelets.
Yeah, good times, good times.
Good time.
I feel like this is more of a Sam thing, but
Yeah.
you should also bring tissues if you don't get the surprise song you wanted.
Or if you do, because I
Or
did
if you
cry at
do,
mine.
Hold
Yeah.
on, she was just sobbing the whole time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I sobbed the hardest like I remember this clearly. Like the notes started, me and Lorie both turned to each other at the same time, and
yes.
then I just burst out crying.
Because I
When I
told
remember-
Sam, what I wanted is I wanted
Mhm.
either death by 1,000 cuts or no
Mhm.
body, no crime. And so Sam knew that. We've been talking about that.
Mhm.
And then Lover is a very special album for Sam. So when it started getting into that, yeah, that was it. We both looked at each other and then Sam was gone.
I was gone.
There were several times during that entire concert that I just looked over. I'm like, why are you
listen,
crying?
I'm a Pisces, man. We
No,
know
you're a
this.
cusper. Okay, next one.
Stop. Oh, it's just me. Have your boss also be a Swifties so you can all go together. Once again, thank you, Burch Law and Lorie Burch.
What can I say?
And then the last one, be
yeah, what is
prepared to
this?
just spend a lot of money on snacks.
Like $75 worth
yeah,
of
on like
M&Ms.
2 bowls of
Look,
M&Ms.
Okay. This
Who
is
did
the
that
second
again?
time. This is the second time this has come up in the last week for me. Because we were
Wait,
on
really?
vacation in Florida with our best friend Amber, and she was at the concert with her daughter Bella.
Shout out
And
Amber.
I guess they went to the store and brought me back a bag of peanut M&Ms, and they had to allude to that. So I was in the moment, and I really wanted M&Ms. It was on
We
the
couldn't
list.
find them.
Yeah, we
and
actually
Yeah, because
did go out and look.
me and Sarah, when we were getting food, tried to
Right.
look for you. And
So
we
we
couldn't
were
find any.
in a suite. And we could order it. And yeah, it did. Did it really say $75?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I figure it's fine. We're just splurging, right? So fine, $75 worth of peanut M&Ms, and I thought like they would bring in like a crate of them. She hands me like a bag that maybe had a little bit over a gallon of them, and I really presume. So it's like, like a Ziploc bag, if you will, okay, of M&Ms. And I was thinking, okay, where are the rest of them?
Wait, I have a
No,
question.
that was the whole bag.
How did they get into the 2 little bowls? Was that your doing? Like, did they just bring you a bag and you had to put them in bowls?
Yes, I did that.
Oh,
Oh.
Oh, okay.
hold on.
I thought
Who
you just had the 2
remembers-
bowls for
Yeah,
$75.
me too.
Yeah, I was like,
No,
dang.
no,
Remembers after the
I realized early on when she handed me the bag that I'm going to have to hoard them. So a little bit for you, a little bit for you, and then rest
Smart.
for me. Yeah.
Does anybody remember that at the end of the concert, we were waiting to leave? Lorie and Kimberly drive past us, and I may or may not have texted her that I had a bag of M&Ms in the car. with me the
Yeah,
whole
you
time.
did. I remember that.
Yeah,
Hilarious. But
I was taunting you.
Yet another excellent checklist to make
Yeah.
sure that you have the best experience. So again, it's important to make sure that you don't only apply superficial criteria when it comes to making the best choices. It's not just about cost. It really ultimately is about value, and how do you find the best value for yourself? Well, hopefully we've provided some tips for you. We'll probably revisit this topic again because it's very important and very helpful. And if anybody has any suggestions of things they want us to cover, please let us know. And if you will, won't you join us once again for another episode of One of Us Knows What They Are Talking About, and the other one is you. Until next time.